Coach, I don't know if you saw the picture, or the video when Brian Rupel made those three incredible saves during the second shot. There was a body that flew in. One of your players was giving up his body to try and block the shot, and I know it's number one. What does that say about Brett Makar that he laid his body
Not,
on the line to block the shot? Did you ever do that?
yeah, it doesn't surprise. I mean, guys will definitely jump in front of shots, or if the ball's on one side of the field, depending on where their guy is, guys will slide in the back of the goal just to kind of fill that up. But not surprised with Brett. Nothing surprises me with him.
Were you surprised? Well, let me ask you, have you seen you've been around a long time, and we remember Tillman Johnson in the championship series when he was so unbelievable from Virginia. That period of three saves is about as good as I've ever seen. How about you?
Yeah, and I think because of where we were in the game, there's probably more to it. Let's say that was a Tuesday game, in the first quarter. Like you probably wouldn't have seen it as much. I mean, just but it was time. We did not do a good job. There was a quick change of possession there. And I think there was some confusion on, like, are we getting a ball? Are they getting the ball? There was definitely we couldn't tell whether it was us or them. We felt like H had the ball and was bringing it up, and obviously he ended up on the ground, so you kind of felt like maybe something would be there, and they just picked it up, and instead of some went the other way with a 4-on-3. So we put ourselves in a really bad spot there, and luckily Brian bailed us out.
Go to Tony.
Hey, Coach, how are you today? Wanted to ask you about Penn State. Um, to me, it looks like they're playing differently this year than they have in previous years, and I wanted to get your take on that. To me, it looks like on defense they're not as aggressive, like pressing out as much. That they're playing kind of more kind of packed in, stay at home. But conversely, the offense does not look like the offense that they used kind of during the Ament years. It looks like they're a little more diverse in terms of what they do. I was wondering if you could kind of talk a little about your view on offense and defense of them.
Yeah, defensively, new defensive coordinator, Joe Bucci came in from UMBC. And so, knowing that, he had done a good job there, and then had worked with Jameson, who's now at Hopkins, who does a good job for them as well. So you can kind of tell what tree he's from, kind of, who we worked with. A lot of times, whoever we work with, we kind of pick up philosophies and things like that. Just like you would in football, if somebody's a passing offense, when you go from one place to another, you kind of bring those things with you. So they're not sliding as much. They kind of fake slide and try to hold their spots more. Definitely not as extending as much, at least most of them will. 43-4 will extend a little bit. I do think in the middle, aggressive. If they find the right opportunities, they'll look. But I think they're really organized. 32 from offense to defense, and he's doing a good job, as well as Hawes at defensive midfield. So they've done a good job. They brought in a transfer 9 to kind of stabilize that. And then with 4, they have a good 4-man short stick unit. They have 2 freshmen there doing a nice job for them. I think they're not super complex, but they're letting their athletes play. They're long. They're kind of making kind of on kind of run by somebody and score. And yeah, definitely we were just kind of talking about it. They have 2 good, a very veteran, in there. They have 4 fifth-year guys that, to have, the year played a ton of lacrosse. certainly had an attack 3 years. A guy that had a great career at St. Lawrence, a guy that very so they move it. Some of those guys have he was dinged up in high school, but was always a good player. Was not. Costin is playing well. They bring in Binghamton's best offensive player, Winkoff, and he's playing. So you kind of have poison there. They'll put a field with both midfields that they shoot the ball well. They can run by you. So if you help too much, they'll try to carve you up. If you don't help enough, they'll shoot the ball. So definitely pose a lot of challenges for you. You can see why they've done so well.
Go to Judith. Coach, I don't know if there's anywhere else you could move a little bit. The connection's going a little in and out.
Oh, it is? Okay. Let me see. I'm hearing gossip. I'm going to try to move. Is it any better? And if it's not, I'll move upstairs too.
Right now, it's sounding good, so we can go to Judith. Thank you.
Okay. No, I actually thought it was me because I was sitting outside, so that's why I thought maybe, or my parents' deck. But my question is, other Maryland coaches have talked about how since Maryland moved to the Big Ten, or at least by now the last couple of years, it's Maryland has elevated everyone else's opponents or opponents all around. Your other big conference opponents. Is that kind of how you feel in the Big Ten as you kind of start that season?
I think what's unique for us is relative to almost every other sport, we just didn't have a Big Ten lacrosse, when we joined the Big Ten. So whereas, basketball and maybe some other sports, we were joining a pre-existing conference. We were just creating one. So it was kind of a very unique situation to be in. So I think all the 5 other teams are having really good seasons. I think everybody's ranked in the top 20 right now. So it just goes to show that, all of them, obviously the coaches have recruited well. They're good coaches. And it seems like all the schools have really, put a high value on supporting men's lacrosse, which is pretty cool.
Go to Colin.
Hey, Coach. So you picked up the 2 losses earlier in the season, triple overtime against Notre Dame, but now you guys are on a 2-game winning streak with maybe the most important one of the season coming on Saturday in overtime. Is there a new sense of confidence around the locker room now?
It's kind of tricky. You want to make sure that, you win a game like that. You have to kind of put it in your rearview mirror, just like losing the game 2 weeks ago. We had to put it in the rearview mirror and not let that impact, our confidence going forward. And then on this end, I do think there are some guys that are getting more confident. Some of our younger guys, I feel like Braden Irks is, playing more confidently. Eric Kohler, Nick Red. I just think those guys now 7 games in where they are relative to where they were at the beginning of the year. They just, the game slowed down, still more to go, but you put that many minutes in, you hope you grow. And I think for some of our guys, it certainly has. We've had to mix and match and move some guys around and shuffle to try to kind of figure out what allows us to put our best foot forward. But I think we're trying to find that sweet spot between, obviously having some confidence, but not being having some confidence, but not being overconfident. So whatever we did the week before doesn't carry over. You have to prove it all over again. And in this day and age, with these guys, always on their phones and reading things, we just got to make sure we realize we have a really, really good team coming in on Saturday that's had a great season. They've beaten 3 top 10 teams. So we've got to be dialed in and ready. We've been on spring break, so we've been a little inconsistent in our practice and our focus this week, partially because we're in a new routine. I think all of us are better when we have routine and structure. And, when we have a typical week with school, you're doing everything the same way. Now that we're on spring break, I just feel like we've been just a little disjointed, and that's normal and it's natural, but it is something that as a coach, it does concern you, because during your 2 hours of practice, like, you want to be locked in, you want to be razor sharp, you want to be detail oriented, and a lot of that comes from just being focused and locked in.
Thanks. And the last question that I had was, yeah, you mentioned practice a little unorthodox this week. But after looking at the film from Saturday's game, is there anything that you saw that you particularly have been working on or that you want to improve this Saturday?
Certainly, you come out of your seventh game, you're still kind of working on everything. Obviously we'd like to kind of look at playing a more consistent 60 minutes. We went a long time without scoring, which is always concerning. We get to 3 and then they put in 6, and just some of our turnovers, our decision making, our level of execution, that's got to get better. Defensively, some of our off ball, some of our pick play, things like that were not great. I think our kids would tell you that too. So those are things that we've been working on, because if you don't clean up those things, people look at that film and they're going to go after those things to see if you short them up. We do the same. So that's something that we've got to continue to keep improving upon. And, again, knowing teams the way you know them, Penn State will pick us. They do a great job in the pick game. They have very good cutters. They move on the ball well, off the ball well, and they're very slick. So we've got to do a good job there. I thought in the transition game, I thought, we could try to get out a little bit more and try to create a little more transition. I did think that the guys handled the 10-man that Virginia runs. I thought Brian did a good job. They defended us and kind of rode us a little bit differently than they had all year. They still 10-man, but you could tell they were going to kind of see how Brian would handle making a lot of decisions in that kind of environment. And I thought Brian actually handled it pretty darn well. He actually almost scored a goal. He hit a pipe. So all in all, I thought he did a decent job. But I think for him, it's kind of back to work. I think there are a couple he felt like he maybe could have had. And that's what you like to see from your guys, win or lose, just trying to get better.
Thanks, Coach.
You got it.
Can go to Varun.
Hey, Coach, how are you?
Great, thanks.
You talked a little bit about the confidence that you've seen some of your players get. Is there either a play on the field or a conversation you guys shared off the field that shows that increased confidence from one of these guys?
I think, just you look at some of the the body language of some of the guys being under pressure or being in those moments. You can read that sometimes. I know for like Eric Kohler, he took 2 shots on Saturday. One was deflected. The other one, he stepped in confidently and scored. And I think sometimes, he was playing most of the time on defense, but I felt like, that goal for him gave him some confidence. Even in like the clearing game, he had a moment early in the year where, you could tell he was looking a little rushed. And then in even a more difficult situation last Saturday, he looked like he handled it just more confidently. And his body language was really good. So that was nice to see. So sometimes it's maybe one play, it's typically like a number of plays and you're like, okay, it seems like maybe it's slowed down a little bit. Which we really need. I think for Donovan Lacey, another guy who's playing a lot, that was big. And, I think all of those guys, Nick, and Donovan and Eric, they became even more important with Dante going down in the third quarter. So, those guys got all, more work going down the stretch. So kind of to absorb that and still come out with a W, I thought was obviously, was good for our guys to kind of overcome that challenge.
And then the second question, with your team about to start conference play, what would you like to see from them?
I think we're all trying to play 60 good minutes. We've had some breakdowns on some things. And again, last week, some off-ball stuff, some pick play stuff. Communication just needs to continue to get better. We've had some lulls offensively in every game. So, trying to avoid those and continue to, kind of make good decisions, but really play fast and be aggressive. I'd like to see us get more transition going from defense to offense. I think that would be something that we could look for. Last week was always tough. The last 2 weeks, it's been good for us. We've won 2 games, but 2 games where statistically, Luke has not had his best games. And we think obviously a lot of Luke, and we have a lot of confidence in him. But early on, I felt like, we were riding him a lot. And, we kind of needed to, but to have 2 games in a row, and obviously P. LaSalle is terrific. But to be a little bit more 50-50 there and not get those extra possessions to still be able to find a way to win, I thought is good for us, because inevitably we saw that at Albany. The stats historically don't bear out that you're just going to be that like 70% every game. It just doesn't happen. So, we've got to make sure that we value the possessions, and doesn't mean you're going to score, but you're trying to generate good opportunities with every possession. So I think that's something that we're trying to do a better job of is play fast, but not feel rushed. And if we can do that, especially with both groups, I think that's huge. I thought Spanos came through, with another big goal for us last week, which was great. And again, it was great to see Braden have a little bit of a tough second quarter, but I thought Braden played well in the second half, and that's huge for us going forward, because he's playing against a fifth-year senior who's 6'6" and really good. And for him to kind of, have some challenging moments, but then just not flinch and keep playing and play like he did, in the second half, I think that helps us going forward.
All right. Thank you everyone for hopping on. Looks like everyone's done with questions. So appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Big challenge this week.
Thank you, Coach.
Bye.